So when you come home, there's nothing cool to talk about. You can't go home and say, babe, I shot a machine gun off the back of a boat today and lit an island on fire because the tracer rounds lit the whole grassy mountain up, and it was awesome. And then I got to do some fishing on the way home, and that was my day at work. What'd you do?
Welcome to the Tradies Business Show with Warwick Bidwell. Talking business ownership, the nuts and bolts, and everything in between.
G'day and welcome to the Tradies Business Show. Great to have you with me. Always love putting these episodes together. Bit of an interesting sound grab there at the start. Shooting machine guns off the backs of boats and setting islands on fire. Not the normal sort of guest we would have here on the Tradies Business Show, but certainly someone that I've wanted to chat to for a while, and crazy that it took me so long to get today's guest on the show. Jason Urbacher is a good mate of mine and a former soldier in the Australian Army. Served this country for a number of years, and he left the military and promptly went into business. And that's one of the reasons I want to chat to Jason on today's show, is on today's episode, is to talk about that whole transition and change of career or change of role. And it's something that I certainly see a lot of tradespeople wrestle with, is particularly as they come off the tools, those feelings of not really producing anything, not being effective, not achieving goals, because all they do is sit behind a computer and maybe process invoices or book Facebook marketing or create systems or sit in team meetings and do all those things that leave you feeling a little unfulfilled perhaps. And I even have a couple of my business wingman clients that are working through this stuff at the moment. So was keen to have a chat to Jason about this. He exited the military, as I said, went into business, learned some hard lessons, and learned some hard lessons about how that impacted things at home as well with the wife. So great episode. Love chatting with Jason. Jason and I tend to go down some rabbit holes when we get together and talk about some deep and meaningful stuff. So really enjoyed this chat with Jason today. I hope you do too. Stick around till the end. I've got some information for you on a little competition that I'm running at the moment, and you could win some stuff, and you might want some more information about Jason and maybe about CrossFit. So strap yourself in, release the safety, and have a listen to my chat with Jason Urbacher. So with me today is Jason Urbacher. He's the owner of CrossFit Confront and a former servant of the country, mate. Welcome to the studio.
Thanks for having me, Woz. Good to be here.
No worries, mate. So you might want to unpack that a little bit for the listeners, Jason. Give us your bio, mate, in sort of 100 words or less.
Rightio. So left school, dabbled a little bit in chefing. Figured that wasn't for me. Working when my mates are partying is not my style of fun.
Yeah.
Always had a burning desire to join the military, so I did. Didn't quite get into the jobs that I wanted to in the military, but I went for it anyway. Spent close to 8 years in the military. Served in Darwin, Townsville, deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, and it was during one of my deployments that I discovered CrossFit, which turned out to be my next career progression. Mm-hmm. And since that day, it was sort of a slow progression out of the military, doing a bit of coaching and getting educated enough to do this outside the military, and then took the leap and got out and decided I wanted to come back to Toowoomba and do that full time, and here we sit.
Cool.
So CrossFit Confront has been running for close to 5 years now, 5 years in February, so 4 solid years. And we've definitely had our shares of ups and downs and learning experiences along the way.
Yep.
But yeah, it's going good. We've hit a bit of momentum recently, and just trying to carry that forward into the new year and just keep it going into 2018. So,
and you've just had your third bub, mate.
Yeah, it's been a busy year. It's gone by so quickly that I haven't even realised how busy it's been. But we've bought and sold a house, had a new baby, made improvements and additions to the gym and all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah, cool, mate. So obviously, former, well, I don't know what we're supposed to refer to you as, mate. A serviceman or
soldier.
a soldier? That sounds
Yep.
better.
Yeah, just keep it simple. That's what the army's about, mate. Keep it simple.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I won't be derogatory to soldiers, mate.
Yeah. It's a good and bad thing.
Yeah. So you've been out for how long now?
So I got out sort of at the end of 2011. So I've been out for a good 6 years, 7 years. So
yep. And you're not fully out though, are you? Like you still dabble a bit.
Yeah, I like to keep my toe in things. So I got out and almost immediately found a reserve position, and it's vastly different to what I was doing in the military. So I actually work at a museum as I don't know what my job title is out there, sort of assistant curator type position.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it allows me to be a little bit creative. I'm not constrained by the left and right of arc that my old job used to have in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the Australian Army Flying Museum. So, it's sort of our charter to protect, preserve and present the history of the Australian Army flying.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very rewarding job. We work with a bunch of elderly volunteers. I won't say elderly, but volunteers of all ages, but mostly ex-servicemen and their mates that they've dragged along.
Yep.
And they build replica aircraft and they maintain current aircraft for display and things like that. So, yeah.
So it's interesting, and one of the reasons I wanted to chat to you on the podcast, Jason, is about this contrast between military service and I guess a military job, if we look at it that way, and business ownership and civvy life. You're obviously still involved with the Army Air Museum, and so you still have, I guess, some insights into that. But what's it been like coming out of the military, or what was it like coming out of the military and starting a business and, I guess, in some ways integrating into civilian life?
Yeah, well, there's a few very clear sectors of that transition. So, the first transition was getting out of the military and just stepping into a normal civilian job as a personal trainer. I worked for a few other places before I started my gym, so I was an employee for a period of time, not just straight into business ownership.
How did that go for you, mate?
Yeah, it definitely had its challenges.
What were some of those?
Well, I think I definitely had some of my own challenges in that I was very driven towards a specific goal. So working for an employee that has other ideas was challenging. But then I guess when you've got such defined goals, the progression towards those goals, or for me, it was important that they were quite clear how everything was progressing. And I found there was a lot of ambiguity in the progression that I was taking, in that I was getting told one thing by an employer, and whether it panned out that way or not was a different matter. So I'd end up working hard to build something with promises dangled in front of me, and then minds would change, and all the work you've been doing above and beyond the colleagues around you is for nothing, and you've gone back to square one, sort of thing. So I guess the military gave you a very black and white understanding of your progression through your career. Spending a certain amount of time in a rank, doing a certain amount of courses, and then after that time and after completion of those courses, moving to the next level. Whereas Civilian Street, it's hugely up to your employer as to where you go and how quickly you go there. And at the end of the day, whether you go there at all. So that bugged me a lot. And yeah, definitely caused some angst in my transition from military life to civilian life. And I would say definitely pushed me into business ownership quicker than I probably would have imagined. Wasn't a bad thing. It's just the decision to become a business owner was a little bit more turbulent than passive, I would say.
So what was the lure of business ownership, mate? Like obviously being an employee wasn't for you, which strikes me as being not strange. I wouldn't say that to you, mate, because you're bigger than me. But coming from the military, I suppose as a civilian myself, I would look at military service and being an employee and think, okay, well, you're working to a set of rules, there's a structure, you've got a role to fill. Hopefully your employer has reasonably clear guidelines, and maybe that's the gap that we're identifying here. But why business ownership, mate?
I think for me personally, it was about control. So I just felt like where I was, I wasn't in control of what was happening to me. And the army, whilst it gives you a lot of structure and guidance on what to do every day and where your career is going over the period of time, pardon me, it also gives you a very keen sense of what you're capable of. So the military from day one, they pride themselves in breaking you down and building you up to be the human that they want you to be. And that usually involves a little bit more initiative and vigour in the way you act in day-to-day life. So to work for someone and have that vigour and ambition quashed to suit their mould got really old for me really quick. So eventually I was like, I can't handle this anymore. I'm not in control here, and I'm going to take the lead and just go for it myself. And admittedly, when I started, there was a whole lot of things that I didn't consider about that decision, but they were punches that I took later on, and I definitely didn't regret the decision. It's just there was a whole lot more involved in it than initially thought. So,
yeah. So what were some of those things, mate? I mean, you talk about, I guess, some of those hard lessons that happened. What were some of the biggest ones? What were some of the keys?
Well, see, I loved CrossFit and I loved training and I love coaching people. But what I didn't count on is all the admin stuff that was required, the maintenance, the budgeting, the paying of bills, the training team members, customer relations, taking inquiries, actively building the business. They're all things that sort of fell into my lap rather than me taking control of them from the get-go. I sort of had to learn how to deal with each of those things in unison with everything else that was happening around me, and not just handle them, but actually do them well and create a system that's good enough to carry you forward rather than just bumbling your way through it the whole time. So
yeah,
I learnt the hard way about systems or lack thereof, and creating a repeatable process, because I found that the way I was bringing people into the gym initially was quite haphazard and not planned. So it was just sort of, I was stumbling through. So
Make it up as you go.
Yeah, pretty much so.
So obviously you've learned some hard lessons, mate. I'm curious to know what you thought business ownership was going to be like, because you said there's all these other things that you hadn't considered, and I don't mean to sound I don't know what the word is, incredulous or maybe like a smart ass, because I've been in business for half of my life.
Yep.
And sitting here listening to you say that, it's like, well, what the fuck did you think it was going to be?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I've had the same thoughts about myself as well. You sort of look back on your experiences and you're like, wow, I really jumped in head first there. And what I thought business was going to be, I thought business was going to be turn up to my gym and do what I wanted to do, and get paid more money for doing it because I'm the guy who takes the money, and have free time and all this kind of stuff. The gym would just build itself, and I'd just sit back and just cruise along. But
sounds awesome, mate.
Yeah,
no wonder so many people go into business.
And it's I've talked to a lot of other gym owners, and I did what they talk about or reference a lot, and that was coach math, where you go, well, hold on a minute, rent's only $25,000 a year, and I only have to pay a coach this much to run these other classes for me. And if I can get this many members that pay me this much money, then holy shit, like that's a heap of profit that I can just coast off, and I'll pretty much be a millionaire after a couple of months. And are
there many CrossFit affiliate millionaires, mate? Other than Greg Glassman?
I don't think so. Yeah. I mean, there's absolutely some hugely successful affiliates out there. But because of the way that CrossFit coaches evolve, They usually come from another profession. They fall in love with CrossFit. A lot of them make the decision that they want that to be their career or their life from that point. A lot of people make the same assumptions and just walk straight into business ownership without actually, thinking in depth or going and gaining any real experience or knowledge, and just finding out the hard way.
Yep.
And I can definitely say that we're absolutely not successful as I would like to be. I mean, I set a pretty high bar, and I don't think I'll ever be as successful as I want to be. I think if you are, you set the bar too low and you'll stop progressing and you'll stagnate.
Yep.
But yeah, we've definitely made some really educated decisions of late. And they haven't come to me on my own. I've had to seek out the information and take some good hard, look at myself and figure out what I'm doing wrong. So the ability to be self-critical in being a business owner is absolutely essential. Like, if you don't have the ability to sit down and go, I'm really shit at this, I need to do better, and seek out the information or find someone who can do it for you, then you're going to fail.
Has that been hard for you, Jason?
I personally would say no. Yes, it is a hit to the ego when some issues arise and you've got to fix it. But I tend to be a very critical person as it is of myself. And I also love seeking out information. So I love being a student and learning things. So having the ability to identify, firstly, your faults, and then have the initiative and the lack of ego to go and find the information to fix it, or even find someone else, which is harder sometimes, who are going to tell you what you're doing wrong, is pretty important. And there's some areas where I struggle with it because my ego's attached to those areas, but in other areas like finance, I'm happy to admit when I'm wrong, and when I'm out of my depth. Hence why my wife pays most of the bills. I have a huge sense of awareness that I'm shit at money. So
it's a common story amongst blokes, and I've been working with business owners as a coach and a mentor for 10 years, and I've been in business for half my life, as I said, which is more than 10. And one of the most common paradigms is the woman takes care of the finances, and the bloke's doing the job, and probably sales and more of that sort of catch and kill type approach.
Absolutely,
It's just interesting to see. It's not necessarily the best way. It just seems to be how it usually falls into line.
That's right. I think if I took care of the finances, I'd have more of an acute sense of what's happening financially within my business. But on the same token, sometimes I don't want to have that acute sense of what's happening financially. I just want to focus on the task at hand. And as it's progressed, the task at hand for me is coaching the classes I need to coach, but also focusing on business development and building strong systems to move forward with the gym. So I think it's a benefit and a downside having someone else handle the financial side of the business. But we often educate each other, whether it's in the right way or the wrong way.
That's well put, mate.
On what's lacking within the gym. So it works in its own haphazard way.
So one of the other things I want to talk to you about, and I'm sure we'll loop back to some of these points again, is obviously coming out of the military. My perception is you would have a high degree of clarity about your role, how to carry it out, how it fits within the greater organisation. And then, if we skip your little trial period as an employee, because that clearly didn't work well for you,
no, it wasn't a great
or for your
experience.
employer, I suspect. But into business ownership. How have you found that shift in identity?
It was hard. When you leave the military, generally when people leave, they've had enough. They've decided it's not for them anymore. And again, like jumping into a business ownership, when you leave the military, you jump head first into leaving the military. And it's only later that you sit back and realise that you've lost a lot. Generally, you've lost a lot of pay. That's something that we all take for granted in the military is the package that we're on. So, subsidised rent, good salary, lots of leave, benefits going out field, benefits being separated from your partners or your families, service allowance, that's the money side of things. So you feel that straight away. Unless you're lucky enough to walk into a high-paying job, which some people are, others not so much. And the other thing you lose is that, I guess, you lose a lot of sense of belonging. Like you've just belonged to this pretty great organisation for a decent period of your life. And as much as you might despise it as you leave, you look back on it and realise that even though you're a small part of that machine, you still were part of the machine, and it was a great feeling knowing that you're part of a pretty prestigious and well-respected force around the world. And when you leave, you sort of lose that chunk of yourself, and you're like, well, what's my meaning now? And like you said, when you're in the military, everyone has their clear and defined role, their job, their piece, their bit. And then when you leave, you don't have that anymore. No one's relying on you to do your job, to do their job, for which then determines the success or failure of the mission. You just and that's it.
Yep.
And you can still have your family units, you can still have your group of friends, but often when you come back from the military, you don't click or vibe with your group of friends anymore. You've had different experiences in life. You've changed as a person. And quite often, this sounds bad to say, but the people who stayed in your hometown, they haven't really changed much. They're still just doing them. They're working jobs that they may or may not have kept or changed or whatever. And you've been places and you've done things, often really cool things and exciting things and dangerous things. And you come back and it's just Pleasantville. It's black and white. It's, you just slide back in and expect that you're going to be happy when in reality you've lost a huge chunk of what you've been built for. So there's that. And the other thing I realised quite quickly is that mateship was hard to kindle outside of the military. Like I've got military mates now that I can call up at the drop of a hat, having not talked to them for 4 or 5 years, and we can hit the town and have a great time together, talk about old times, talk about new times, talk about anything really, because we've had those shared hardships and good and bad experiences that we can relate to each other with. And you sort of find out more about people when you're in bad situations or hard situations. Whereas when you're just coasting through life and you're making friends that way, they don't seem to have the same body and soul as the friendships you gain within the military. So, trying to make friends with colleagues outside the military is harder, and it doesn't have the same essence as military mates. So I found that a big struggle. But yeah, I think that's another thing that you've got to realise about yourself is it's up to you to make those relationships, and you've got to find the right people and talk to the right people. And yeah, you can't just rely on the machine to form those relationships for you. So yeah, they were two big things I didn't count on when I got out of the military. That sort of did impact me. They didn't impact me immediately because I was still in that honeymoon period of leaving the military and being my own man and, all that stuff. But yeah, then it hit me later on that I was like, I feel a little bit lost and lonely. And so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned family a couple times, Jason, and I'm still on that transition from military to civilian / business life.
Yep.
How, obviously, you've had kids sort of since leaving. How's it affected that relationship though, pre and post? Because I imagine it would be tough for a lot of spouses, male, female or same sex, whatever, to be with someone going through that transition. How was it for you guys?
It was tough. We had our transitional issues. One of them was actually opposite to what you would think, and it was tough being in each other's pockets so much. So
you actually have to talk to each other.
Yeah, and you have to find something daily to, love about each other.
Yeah.
When in the military, you get sent away a lot, so you might be home for a couple of weeks, and then you go on a course for a week to a month to 3 months or whatever it is, and then you come home again. You're in that bit of a honeymoon period, like you've missed each other. You've been separated for a while. You've got all these things that you're looking forward to before you left or as you're coming home. So you hook straight into that, and you live your life on a little bit of a schedule in that respect. And then you leave the military and you don't no longer go away, and you're there all the time, and you annoy the shit out of each other. You come home at night, and it's just Groundhog Day. Nothing really interesting happened at the gym. I mean, we are changing people's lives on a daily basis, and we're teaching people to move properly and be fitter and stronger and healthier. But in essence, the act of doing that is repetitive. Repetition builds that. So when you come home, there's nothing cool to talk about. You can't go home and say, babe, I shot a machine gun off the back of a boat today and lit an island on fire because the tracer rounds lit the whole grassy mountain up, and it was awesome. And then I got to do some fishing on the way home, and that was my day at work. What'd you do?
Yeah.
And that's how it goes. And, you know, you get really sick of each other in reality. And you also, I guess, when you're in the military, you tend to sort of set holidays fairly regularly. So you get given leave at certain periods during the year, so you plan your holidays. And when you don't do that, you can suddenly fall into this trap of feeling like you've got nothing to look forward to, and that everything's just a grind. And yeah, the one thing I did enjoy though, leaving the military, was spending more time consistently with my kids. My first daughter, I left for Afghanistan when she was 3 months old, so I didn't see her for 9 months until I got back. I mean, I did see her in the middle for a couple of days when we went on leave, but ultimately I missed a good portion of her first year, whereas the other two, I've had a decent opportunity to be a real big part of their lives. And in fact, the business has given me a little bit of freedom of time now that I can actually be a stay-at-home dad. So get out my tactical nappy bag and take the reins. And I'm actually about to step into that role again in the next 5 weeks or so when Emma goes back to work. So I'll be running the gym and doing the other jobs that I do, as well as looking after a 6-month-old sort of thing. So
cool, mate. Yeah,
so there is definitely ups and downs to those, military issues versus civilian life. And we did have to work hard on our relationship outside of the military. And again, it was all factors that we didn't foresee when we left. We thought everything was going to be peachy because I wasn't going away all the time and would have more time at home. But in reality, that bit us in the arse when it actually happened. So
yeah. Yep. Yeah, there's a bit of a theme of not having a full understanding of what you're about to face.
Yeah, that's right.
Transition from military life to owning a business, with the whole relationship thing as well.
Absolutely,
and I guess we're both dads. That parenthood thing is probably the epitome of all of them. It's like, holy shit, I had no idea this is what was going to happen.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the Defence does do a transition seminar that it's compulsory that you attend before you leave the military.
How long does that go for, mate?
Yeah, it's about 2 days. Okay.
Right.
If that. And a lot of it's just, administration. It's like when you get out of the military, you're going to have to update your super, and you're going to have to do this and you're going to have to do that, and you have to find yourself a home. You don't get rent assistance anymore, and have this sorted out and have that sorted out. But they don't ever sit down and actually tell you, like, when you leave, you might have this huge, after a couple of months, you might find this despair that you're not actually part of this big, prestigious machine anymore. You're just you. And they don't talk about those issues. And I think it's a bit of a shortfall in that they indoctrinate you for military life so hard. Like basic training, like I said, is all about breaking you down and turning you into the human being that they want you to be, and acting a certain way and thinking certain ways about situations. And then when you leave, you're not quite prepared for the absence of that, that influence. So, yeah. Yeah,
I often think about that. I guess when people gain weight, generally it's over a long period of time and it's gradually.
Yep.
And then, they make that decision that they want to lose the weight.
Yep.
And when it doesn't happen in a week, they're left feeling defeated and lost. And it's unrealistic to think that you could unwind 5 or 10 or 20 years of your life in a 2-day seminar.
That's right. Absolutely.
And I guess as some of the work that I do with suicide prevention and that's through Mates in Construction, and I've done a little bit of work here and there with some return services groups. Yep. It's something that I hear a lot, is that you basically, like you say, you get indoctrinated so hard.
Yep.
And then literally they just open the door and say, thanks for that, see ya.
Yeah.
Here's a pamphlet, good luck.
That's the feeling you get. And with some of the organisations, particularly on exit from the Defence, they actually, I personally felt a little bit subhuman in the way that they treated you, because you, God forbid, made the decision to separate from the Defence Force. So you do get that little bit of a kick in the guts, that regardless of what you did while you're in the military, this distinct feeling of when you leave, it was all for nothing, and that, any pride that you have about that is gone, because you're out now. So
Yeah.
it sort of ends abruptly.
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know, I still wear camouflage caps and I love military stuff and I keep up to date with all the latest military news and stuff. And I think it's just that mechanism of just holding on a little bit to what you're a part of. And I mean, they always say, once a soldier, always a soldier. And I can definitely agree with that, because sometimes you're holding on to some of the greatest days of your life when you're in the military. So, yeah.
Because a lot of it, you go in as a young bloke,
Yeah.
particularly for men.
Yep.
It's a very formative period in us. I feel transitioning from that sort of teenage, early 20s years
Yep.
to being late 20s, 30s, into
Yeah.
your 40s. Like
That's
that's a key period as a man.
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
finding out who the hell you are and what do you stand for
Yep.
and how do you respond to things.
Yeah.
And to do all that inside that organisation with a certain structure and incredibly strong culture.
Yeah.
And then to no longer be a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of like you don't even get the gold watch.
Yep.
You know,
That's
it's
right.
just a handshake and a pat on the bum
Yep.
and thanks for your service.
Yeah, well, there was a time I joined up when I was 17. So there was a time where I would have been the youngest member of the military, being born in December. So I was at basic training as early as I could be, almost. And and then some key milestones was turning 20 as I flew through Kuwait into Iraq, and actually forgetting my birthday on that day because I was so involved in the mission or what we're about to fly into, sort of thing. But yeah, you're right. I think the key development period for men happened for me while I was in the military. And I'm definitely still learning about myself now, having separated from the military. But yeah, there was a huge part of my life that was influenced by the military culture. And I do not regret it at all. I think the military's made me who I am today. And given the opportunity, I would do the military part of my life exactly how I'd done it. So I wouldn't have changed anything. Maybe the job that I was in the military, but I wouldn't have changed anything. So, yeah.
It's an interesting point, Jason, and I guess, you know, without digging too deep into the philosophy of it all, it's almost impossible. You know, I'm sitting here as a civvy. You're a military man. You're saying you wouldn't change anything. I say the same thing about my life and some of the good and bad experiences. Well, I try not to label them as bad. I guess learning opportunities.
Yeah.
Personal growth opportunities. I had a
Yeah.
shitload.
Yep.
My mum actually said that to me the other day. It's like the latest round of things that have been going on. She said, "You certainly haven't been short of experiences in your life, Warwick."
Yeah,
I was
that's right.
like, coming from my mum, that was pretty big.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's almost impossible to look back without seeing through our own lens.
Yeah.
Through our own filter.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's not to invalidate your experience and your way of seeing the world or you know, becoming a man.
Yeah.
But I guess it's almost an acknowledgement that we're all going to see it in our own way.
Yeah, that's
and,
right.
You know, to judge people based on that is very dangerous.
I think you're definitely right. Like soldiers, especially soldiers that have deployed on operations around the world, they often come back and they get labels as angry. And I guess it's not angry, it's just that we've seen different things and we've seen other cultures and other countries in a way that you'll only ever see if you're at war. And you see the worst and the best parts of those cultures, and not just cultures, but just opinions on certain issues and reactions to issues that people have in life, you know, first world problems as we call them. And you do get this high level of frustration when people start whinging about things that they're really menial, like they don't mean anything at the end of the day. Like, who cares if your coffee went up in price? Or, you know, I'm pretty bad with road rage. Like, I get angry, but I think it's because people aren't moving efficiently. Like, driving a motor vehicle is a quest for efficiency in my eyes. You want to get from A to B as efficiently as possible and as safely as possible. So when you see someone on their mobile phone checking Facebook, holding you up from getting through the traffic light, you do get angry. But I guess that's another first world problem in effect. But yeah, you do. You have this huge, difference of approach when it comes to life after experiencing some of those things, and it's either going to help you or hinder you in what you choose to do outside the military. You know, if I stayed angry and didn't see things and understand that I've been through certain experiences that have molded me this way and just took it for granted, then I'd definitely continue resenting everyone around me for thinking about life the way they do and reacting to life the way they do. And I guess the benefit for me is that I'm in a position of influence within the gym where I can shape people's expectations of life and make them just a little bit more resilient. So,
and it's something that strikes me. I did a little bit of work a few years ago with an organisation that was helping to give vets a new mission.
Yeah.
And a high proportion of returned servicemen actually end up in small business.
Yeah.
Because there's that ownership thing, they're looking to create outcomes and all that sort of stuff, achieve goals, they're often very goal-oriented in my experience. And it's, I get the feeling that, being a CrossFit affiliate, you're directly changing individuals.
Yeah.
You're not selling them iPads.
No, that's right.
Or, tyres for their car or some crap.
Yeah.
Sorry, those things are still essential services, I guess, in the first world.
Yeah.
But you're directly working on individuals.
Yeah.
And so
absolutely.
you're seeing the fruits of your actions and even of your coaching team. Do you think that gives you that mission? It's something that I want to talk about, is finding that next mission for you.
Oh, absolutely. I suppose when I first got out of the military, when I first started the business, I had a different mindset, and it was probably the wrong mindset in that I just wanted to create elite athletes, and that was my focus. But then I realised along the way, through a little bit of coaching from the right people, that elite athletes are about 1% of the population, and that 98% of the population need to be there for a better life.
Yep.
And so I get more gratification now from teaching or coaching these people than I do the guys that want to be the next CrossFit Games champion, because those elite athletes, they're going to train anywhere. You can kick them out of the gym today and they'll be in another gym training tomorrow. Whereas if I kick out the person that's pre-diabetic and obese and has mobility issues and things like that, they're not going to go and train somewhere else. You've got the opportunity to pull them into the gym, train them, and teach them a better way or a better approach to life and health and fitness. That they're not going to go and find elsewhere. You've captured them, so it's your responsibility then to teach them that stuff and guide them on that path. And I guess that's where the biggest gratification comes from in our job is seeing someone adapt and evolve. So we've had athletes in our gym that have gone from being overweight and having a bad attitude about health and fitness to they can do pull-ups and muscle-ups and handstand push-ups and handstand walks. They can climb ropes and throw around heavy barbells, and that's just in the gym.
Yep.
Then the mental adaptation that you see within them as well is, if they know that they can put that 50-kilo barbell above their head, squat it for as long as their legs will hold out, then what tasks are they going to encounter in day-to-day life that come close to that? And I can tell you it's going to be virtually zero, unless you're in an emergency situation.
Yeah.
But, going to the office, going shopping, picking up your kids from school, playing on the playground, walking over a hiking track or whatever, is not going to present anywhere near as much of a challenge as what these people face every day they come into the gym. So that mental adaptation that people go through is profound, and it's probably the greatest adaptation I find is the mental adaptation is far more profound than the physical adaptation and more valuable than the physical adaptation in how to deal with life. And then the health benefits and the obvious, fitness benefits as well. Yeah. They're going to benefit that person going into the future and live a longer life and a more valuable life. And that's the mission these days. So we've molded our gym and we've changed our processes and stuff to facilitate those types of people. We don't facilitate for elite athletes at all. They often need extra work and things like that. I mean, we can cater for that, but it's definitely not our focus, and we haven't branded or built our gym towards that focus. And I think we've benefited from it, not just business-wise, but emotionally, and it's just a better place to be training those types of people. So, yeah.
And certainly as a member and a part of the team there as well, when I turn up, mate, is the culture is different.
Yeah, that's right.
It's it's a different level of conversation and level of inclusiveness. Having people who are just looking to live a better life than trying to get the last 5 or 10% out of their performance.
Absolutely. Like, even myself, in my ups and downs with my own training, and some of it that I contribute to having a lack of direction in life is like, what am I training for these days? I've had to change my mindset from training for the mission or, training for military life to now just training and finding new meaning behind it, in that I just want to move and be fit. So, getting rid of that ego and taking some of the weight off the bar in certain situations, and just being happy with movement rather than being the best in the room or, fit for the mission. It's been a big step for me as well. So
it's an interesting point, Jason, and one that I know a lot of business owners struggle with, and I've struggled with it personally over the years, is this idea of setting goals.
Yeah.
And I've got, 20 books behind me in the bookcase here about goal setting, and some say you should set goals and here's how to do it. Others say setting goals is bad and you shouldn't do it. And in the end, I've just kind of stopped reading books about anything to do with goal setting because there's so many conflicting opinions.
That's right.
Sort of like nutrition. But for you, I guess my perception is that in the military, you would have goals set for you by somebody else, by the organisation.
That's right.
And, here's the pathway, go do that, and that's what we're going to achieve.
Yep.
How the bloody hell do you make the transition from that to having to set your own goals and create your own mini or larger missions in life?
Yeah, that's right. I think I myself, I'm not a big proponent of setting goals, specific goals sort of thing. I have a desired end state that I want to achieve. And then my method of thinking according to that end state is, if I do this next step or take this next action, how is that going to move me towards my end state? So that end state becomes my driving force, rather than I need to get to 150 members. How do I do that? Let's do it, go. It's more along the lines of changing my mindset into, this is the end state I want to achieve, and anything that distracts me from that is not worth pursuing. This is where I want to be and going for it.
Yep.
But you're right, the military has very specific goals. We don't call them goals. It's like phase 1 involves this, and it's going to be completed by this stage. And if that doesn't go ahead, then phase 2 will fail. And there's very specific orders and tasks that have to be done by certain timelines, and that works in the military because you've got the structures there to make it work. You've got hierarchy keeping you on track. You've got the threat of death hanging over your head if you don't perform in some areas. You've got the fear of you and your actions being the reason that a mission fails hanging over your head. So you're extremely motivated towards those goals or phases or missions, whereas you don't get that outside. It's easy to go, this is my goal, this is what I'm working towards, and I have to have this done by Friday, and that's on Monday. You get to Wednesday and you're like, it doesn't matter. If I don't achieve that goal, who am I affecting? No one. It's just me. And because you don't have those fears hanging over you, things just don't get done the way you want them to do. Well, this is my experience anyway. So finding a different way of motivating myself has been important. And the 5-year goal thing, that exercise of writing down your 5-year goal, it worked to a degree. I just have this vision in my head of what I want my gym to be in terms of profitability and professionalism and stature within the fitness community in Toowoomba and Australia and wherever else. And most of the decisions that I make these days are hugely reliant upon whether it's going to move me towards that goal. So that's just how I approach goals these days. I'm the best person for making excuses, so I don't find your typical goal works for me. So
we're all very good at telling ourselves we did a great job on Wednesday.
That's right.
And you can have Friday off.
Yeah, I do it all the time. I do it in a matter of minutes. Like, wow, I walked up those steps really fast, so now I'm just going to walk slowly. Or, I did a workout today, which means I can have a burger at lunch.
I crushed it this morning, so extra
I feel really
beer
good
for me tonight.
Extra beer. So I guess it comes down to discipline. I've been coaching myself to be more disciplined, personally these days as well. There's a few influences that I know you'll vibe with.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, Jocko Willink and his extreme ownership books and discipline equals freedom, all that kind of stuff. And I've started reading that recently and making changes based on that, and it's working for me. So, yeah, we as ex-soldiers, or we see ourselves as really disciplined people, but whether we're actually acting that way or not is a different story. So,
because it's almost like that some of that discipline comes as a product of the machine that you're within, and when you take you guys out of that machine, and I want to ask you about personal responsibility and the contrast between the two. It's like pluck you out of that machine, and almost like that exoskeleton's gone now.
Yeah.
And so to exert that discipline personally, you haven't sort of built that muscle as much. And again, this is me seeing through my lens, so I could be completely wrong with that sweeping generalisation of military personnel. But what's your perspective on that, Jason?
In the military, we've got mechanisms that ensure discipline and adherence to routine and stuff like that, and it's called the Defence Force Discipline Act.
Do this, or this bad thing happens to you.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I think because of that mechanism, it makes it easier for yourself to fall into a habit of discipline and routine and structure. But at the end of the day that if you don't iron your shirt properly or turn up to work at the right time, then you've got a corporal or a sergeant or a platoon commander that's going to come down on you and take your weekend away and discipline you and infringe you and charge you, and that happens. It's not a fallacy in the military. You don't get your hair cut when you're told to get your hair cut, you'll be turning up to the duty room every 2 hours over the weekend, so you don't get a weekend.
Yep.
And that's typical. That's a common punishment in the military, and whilst it sucks, it still ensures that people adhere to being disciplined. And I guess when you leave the military and you lose that hammer that forces you to comply, it's then on you personally to decide whether you're going to maintain that discipline. So I know myself, like haircuts, like I can't stand having sloppy hair, and as soon as it starts getting sloppy, I've got to get it done. Whereas other people that I know can go for months without having a haircut, regardless of how they look. And I guess for me, it's I envision myself as being a certain way, as relatively disciplined with my appearance and my what's the word for it? Turning up places on time and things like punctuality. That's the one.
Yep.
And things like that. And that's just how I am. So me and my wife constantly get frustrated when we meet up with our friends and they say we're going to meet at this place at 7:30 and we're there at 7:20 by a matter of habit because a good soldier's always 5 minutes early or 10 minutes. And then your friends turn up at 7:45 and you've been sitting there, you've already had 2 beers and you and your wife are frustrated because it was 7:30 and in the military.
You should have been here at 7:25.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess that's the difference, is that you've got this expectation of how people should act, and it doesn't always happen. So,
So something I'm interested in is, how do you build that within your team? I mean, you've got a team of coaches in your business, and I'm sort of a moonlighting part of that, mate. Just because I love coaching, and I'm one of those people that loved CrossFit so much. I had this brilliant brainwave a few years ago when I found CrossFit. It was like, oh man, I want to open my own box, my own gym, and so I did the numbers. But instead of doing the coach math, I had the benefit of
business math.
15 years of business, and I did the business math and went, that is the dumbest idea ever. I'm never going to make money out of that.
That's right.
So I canned that idea, and now, fortunately, I get to have a play in your gym, mate.
Absolutely.
But I know you work very hard at creating a culture with your staff or your team.
Yep.
Do you have a method behind that? Are you following principles? Like, what's been the journey for you in actually doing that?
Yeah. So the journey for me, when I used to hire coaches, the first coach I ever had was actually one of my young athletes, Riley Smith. He used to train with me. Him and his family used to do PTs. He's an excellent athlete. He was working at the gym I was at previously and pretty much getting treated like shit. And so when I opened my gym, almost immediately he came to me and said, can I be a coach? Can I work for you? And as much as it scared me to put someone on straight away, it in the long run, it turned out the best. But the thing with Riley is we had this good relationship where I mentored him through being quite a shy teenager to now he's one of the best coaches I know. He's got that authority when he coaches, and he's not nervous anymore. He's not anxious. He used to clam up standing in front of people, which isn't a great attribute for a CrossFit coach leading a class. But, I was employing methods to help him through that. So I'd sit there and I would instruct the class to stand on the opposite corner of the gym to Riley. And when he goes to come closer and talk, I'd tell him to get to the other corner of the gym, and I'd make him instruct the class from across the gym and teach him how to use his voice properly, and how to instruct in a haphazard way or haphazard situation or environment. And now he can use his voice properly and, like I said, portray his instructions to a class in no matter what type of environment, and he does well. And the other thing is, he used to get in front of a group, and when he was up there, he would deliver his message, but he would do it rapidly, really, really quickly, like he was in a race. And so I used to make him stand in front of the entire class for 2 minutes without doing anything or saying anything. The class wasn't aware of this. They're all sitting there looking at him stupid, going, what the hell is going on here? Well, I only took a few times to do that, to just show him that it doesn't matter how long you're in front of these people, nothing bad's going to happen, and you just need to adapt and get used to standing in front of people. So with Riley, I had this mentoring progression, and like I said, by the time he ended up leaving Confront to go pursue university studies, he was a really, really capable coach, and I was sad to see him go. And then when that happened, I guess I just found people that displayed qualities of a coach, and I'd put them on, and I'd make sure they had the base level of knowledge, and then have them running classes pretty quickly. And that blew up in my face in that, they had the knowledge and they could, teach the class and teach the movements, but I hadn't standardized their behavior. And so I was getting a bad result from these coaches, and inconsistency in the experience that our members were having. So I implemented our coaches development program. I actually think you were the first one that went through it. I mean, you're at a pretty good level with your coaching anyway, so some of the stuff we discussed over that 30 hours of mentorship was probably suck eggs for you. But when it comes to a young coach that has never done that stuff before, it was invaluable in teaching them not only how to teach a squat, but how to appear professional, how to handle situations. And they always say branding isn't just about your logo, it's about the experience that you create. So having our coaches all on board with that coaches development program, because I've now put 2 other coaches in, as well as yourself, through that development program. And I think at the moment our coaching team's at the best level of professionalism and consistency that it has ever been at. And I contribute it all to that development program. And yes, it was a big investment in my time, but it was worth it, because now I know that my coaches are at a certain level. They know what I expect from them. They know what our members expect, because we discuss all that in the program. And if something isn't systemized to the point where it's written in black and white in front of them, they generally have enough knowledge and feel for the gym that they can make the decision on the fly and produce a good result for our members. So I think it's paid off, and that was a big turning point in that, coaching and training staff. So,
and for me, it was it was a lot of new, knowledge in some ways, but it was reapplying principles I've been using for years as a business coach and a mentor in a different setting. So I found it fascinating to then, bit of that skills transference, which for me has been part of my professional development. And I think I'm a better coach with my business clients because I've been coaching in a physical setting.
That's right.
In that PT type role.
Yeah.
And I'm always happy to make shit up at 5:30 a.m. mate. When the workout isn't clear, it's this is what we're all doing today.
That's right. That's right.
Do you feel like having that coach development program, and I guess the way you induct new people to the team, and I'm putting words in your mouth here, Jason.
Yep.
Do you think that gave you an increased level of freedom, or did that free you from thinking about the gym and the member experience and all that so much?
Just by virtue of the fact that we had more coaches coming through that program, it gave me that freedom. So I've now got more coaches to cover classes. Because when I started CrossFit Confront, I was coaching 25 plus sessions a week. And as you know yourself, coaching a class, an hour class of CrossFit, isn't like doing an hour behind a drill or working on an air conditioning unit or whatever. An hour of coaching is, I reckon, it's equivalent to the energy level of 3 hours of physical work. Because you're actively thinking the whole time, you're engaging with people, you're dealing with problems, you're switching the act on. You're providing a show essentially, so you've got to zone in and focus. And so 25 hours plus was a big work week, and that's not including all the stuff I was doing behind the scenes. And so having the coaches, extra coaches on board, and not just coaches, but coaches that know what they're doing and perform to a really good level, it gives me a whole lot of time, a whole lot more time to do stuff. And it also gives me that mental release from the gym, knowing that I don't have to check in with the coaches after every class to see what went wrong, because I know they've got it. And I know that if something did go wrong, if there was a situation that arose, we've also got other systems in place where I'd find out about that straight away. Like they'd report it on our workplace group. Everything's fairly well communicated in the gym these days. So, that mental release from the gym was invaluable, knowing that my coaches were all on the same page and they knew what they were doing. So,
it's funny. We're talking about this transition from military to business ownership, and I guess the contrast between the two. In all my years of working with business owners, I try and bring, without any inside knowledge of military systems or anything, although I've had a few mates over the years that have served, and family members as well. I guess there's an element of those systems and that structure that I think is essential to running a good business.
Absolutely.
And that's where, and I know we're both followers of Jocko Willink, and that whole discipline is freedom. It's like if you have those habits and those disciplined practices, it frees business owners especially from the micromanagement and the stresses and the worries about, shit, I wonder if everything went okay today. I haven't heard anything. I hope the members are happy. I wonder if I'll get a bad review on Google. And not having those things mean you're just stuck in it.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's interesting to see that you've sort of gone through this transition, and then pretty much, not that you run a military business, but there's aspects to it that
that's right,
really do hark back to that area of your life.
Absolutely, yeah. It's essential. Like I started the business off, like I alluded to before, where you're just sort of bumbling through. Yeah, there is no set procedure, and even in the gym that I was working at before, there was no real set procedure. It was, you had it explained to you how to do things, and there was this culture of how things were done, but there was not a system. So that if someone new walked into that job, you couldn't hand them the job in 5 minutes and teach them. So everything now we have, or we do, is documented. Or if it's not, we're in the active process of documenting it. The idea being with every system that I write is that someone should be able to look at that system and not know anything about our job or have any of the background knowledge that we do, but still be able to do that process. Yeah. And that's been invaluable with us. And I guess you coaches don't see it as much on the floor because we have our systems on the floor, but the things that happen in the background with holds and cancellations, starting up a membership, shutting down a membership, doing marketing, putting WODs up, all that kind of stuff. There's a whole lot of work that happens in the background by actually my virtual assistant, where I've had to create the system in order for that assistant to do what they do and do it to the standard that I expect. And I think one of the biggest things for me as a business owner is, rather than get frustrated with someone because something's not being done right consistently, don't get frustrated with them. You need to take a step back and look at yourself and go, well, why the hell can't my coaches get this shit right? Like, this is...
Shouldn't they know that stuff?
Yeah. Like, this is common knowledge. This should be done automatically every single day without fail. So rather than taking that mindset, you sit back and go, well, one, have I actually taught them how to do it? Two, do they know that there's an expectation that this is going to be done? And three, if they are attempting to do it, have I set a system in place that makes sure it's done the same every single day? And without those three steps being completed by me, then essentially it's my fault that system's falling on its face. So I've got no one else to blame in that instance than myself. You know, coaches or your staff aren't mind readers. You've got to lay it out for them. This is what happens. This is how it happens, and that's it. So, yeah.
Whereas the misconception by business owners and employers around the place that I've certainly seen over the years is that it's enough that I employ someone who has a ticket or 2 years experience. They should be able to do their job without me having to give them all of that. Yep. And if I have to give them all of that, then I might as well just do it myself.
Yeah.
And for me, that's a shit story to tell yourself.
That's right. Well, I mean, having just explained my transition or progression with systems and training staff and stuff like that, I've got mates that are tradies, and the common complaint you get is, I've got so much work on. And you're like, really? How much you work? And they tell you, you're like, holy shit, man, like, how are you even surviving?
Yeah.
You know, like, why are you here? You should be asleep. If you got that much work on, you should be sleeping right now.
Yep.
And then you ask them, you're like, what's going on? Why you got so much work? Oh, because all our employees are shit.
Yep.
You know, they can't do it to the standard we got, so we fired them. You're like, okay, sweet. So how long do they work for you? Oh, yeah, a couple months. They were just continually fucking everything up, and you're like, okay, so what'd you do about it? And they're like, we fired them.
Yeah.
And you're like, are you kidding me? Why don't you train them to your level, or put a system in place that ensures that the work they're doing is to the standard? And the common response is, oh, screw that. Like, these guys had experience. They were, 2, 3, 4 year tradies coming out of apprenticeships and stuff. They should know this stuff. And I'm just like, there is an element of they should know this stuff, and it would be a great world if everyone had the same level of professionalism and degree of finishing a job properly. But that's not how it is, and it's up to you to train those people. So having gone through this same progression in my gym to hearing this stuff, it just blows my mind that that's the approach they take, and it's craziness. Like,
you and
invest.
me both, mate.
Yeah, like, if you're the boss and things aren't playing out for you with your employees, step back from the job, which is what I've had to do with the coaching stuff. Step back and form systems for your business so that you can move forward. Because, I don't know, with the future in mind, if you're not doing that, then how is your business ever going to grow if it's just you? Like, because you've fired every person previously because they can't hold the standard that you expect. So it just blows my mind.
And I've mentioned Jocko Willink a couple of times, and you mentioned his book Extreme Ownership, which, like, if I was going to sum that book up in a sentence or two, is Jocko pretty much says that everything in my life is my responsibility and my fault.
Right.
All the results I've got are from my decisions and actions, which is a principle I've been teaching for 10 plus years.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
And I've applied it successfully and in some ways unsuccessfully in my life.
Yep.
It's usually a slap in the face when I catch myself not following that personal responsibility line. How has that been different for you? Like, would you say there's higher or lower levels of personal responsibility taken in, say, the military versus business owners and employees in civvy life?
I would say it's about the same percentage in and outside the military.
Okay.
Military members are forced to hold a level of discipline and personal responsibility because of the fact that we can punish them.
So there's that external stick approach.
Exactly right.
Big consequences.
Yep. So I reckon it's maybe 50-50. There's as many disorganised people in the military as there is in civilian life. And the sad part about it is most of the guys that I associated in the military held a high degree of professionalism. Unfortunately, they're the ones that usually end up getting out because I guess the military rewards people that don't put the effort in just by virtue of the systems that they've got in place.
Yeah.
And so the good people get frustrated and they leave. So by the time I got to where I was looking at promotion to sergeant, and most of my good mates had already left the military and were living seemingly successful lives outside of the military, and I was still stuck, and I was looking up above me in the rank structure, and there was really no one above me that was motivating me to be like them. Like, I'm a huge believer in having mentors, so find someone that's really successful and acts the way you want to act and copy them.
Yep.
And there was no one like that. I didn't want to be like any of them, so I was like, I'm done. Like, this is me out. And then you come to the civilian life and you get the same thing. You get go-getters that do it because they know that being more professional and disciplined is is going to benefit them in the long run. And then you've got the other ones that just, they stumble through life. Life is seemingly happening to them versus the people that are taking control of life. And so it's about the same. Like there is more rigid structures in the military there that ensure this type of behaviour, but it doesn't mean that everyone's going to be that professional or that disciplined or that take that ownership. So
it seems like to me that the consequences of not taking ownership in business or civilian life are potentially higher. Personally, obviously, I'm not going to die if I don't get a pay rise.
That's right.
So in that sense, in active duty, it's a little different in the defence force. But I can sort of exist within the system, within the machine, because if I sort of conform to a certain level, I'll still advance. I'll still get my good pay packet.
That's right.
Whereas out here, as an employee and in business, certainly as business owners, if you don't take that ownership, you're screwed.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I guess there's an aspect of that I just thought of now that you said that. In the military, there's this minimum standard that you have to meet. So the people that are there, they're not getting fired, they're not getting kicked out of the military because they meet the minimum standard.
Yep.
But they're not the guys that you want to be like. You want to be the guys that can smash the standard into the ground.
Yeah.
And it's the same as outside the military. You got the people that just do the minimum standard. They put the work out on the board and then they set the clock and they say go, and then they check their phone and they have a conversation at the back of the gym. And I witnessed all that working for other gyms, and that's the standard I don't want to see in my gym, which I don't because my coaches are awesome. But that's the minimum standard. But the thing is, that minimum standard has to be set by someone.
Yeah.
And in our business, that minimum standard is set by me. And I guess people have got to conform at least to my minimum standard, which is pretty damn high, or they're gone. And so then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you've got the soldiers that actively strive to smash that standard and be the best at what they do. And they're the guys you want to be around. But on saying that, bringing that type of attitude outside of the military, it actually had a negative effect for me when I first got out, in that my outwardly driven attitude alienated me from some of the people I was working with because they just couldn't handle it.
Yep.
They couldn't handle, I guess, being judged against someone that was driven and they had somewhere to go and they had a sense of urgency and purpose, and they actually hated me for it. And I still do have quite tense relationships with some people because they just couldn't accept the fact that I wasn't just a stander by. I wanted to go places. I had this huge fear of stagnation once I got out of the military, and I didn't want to go through that. And I had a goal, and I was driven, and I was pushing in whatever way I could to get to that goal. And that, like I said, alienated some people and made them feel insecure, I guess. It's not my fault. It's just how it is.
Tall poppy syndrome.
Yeah, exactly right. And in the military, if you are around a good group of people, then, for example, like your junior NCOs, your corporals and stuff, they all know that they're being compared to each other for reporting purposes and promotions and stuff like that. So you can expect to walk in and have to perform because all of your peers are performing. And if you're not, you're at the bottom of the reporting cycle and you're not going anywhere. So that was the culture in the military, that if you wanted to actually go places and get promoted, you had to compete. You had to be a go-getter. You had to take the initiative. It was expected of you. And if you weren't a person that could conform to that expectation, then you weren't going to get promoted, and you'd probably be a digger still. So, So
it's an interesting concept, mate. And I've seen this applied successfully on a number of occasions over the years in businesses where, particularly amongst groups of men, and I guess it's hardwired into us as blokes to be competitive. But where I've seen business owners create that internal competition or in-house competition amongst employees, 9 times out of 10, or maybe even more, people actually push harder because they want to be the person who's, if not at the top, they want to be closer to the top than they are to the bottom of the list.
That's right. Exactly right.
And it's such a simple way to not motivate people. I think it's more about tapping into their internal levels of personal motivation.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's always going to be guys out there that just don't conform to that culture of performance and competition. But I think 9 times out of 10 with men, you're pretty safe to assume that they'll kill each
They
other
wanna
for
win.
points. Yeah, yeah. They don't want to be the bottom of the pack. They want to be at the top.
Provided
And,
they've got a whiff of possibility there. Or,
yeah, that's right.
You know,
That's,
if they think that maybe I could possibly improve or get close to that, they'll have a go.
absolutely. So, yeah, it's something that I think is important. I don't know, fostering that culture of professionalism and being the best and giving your clients the best advice and who can give the best cues and stuff like that. And I mean, it does get a little bit competitive at times, but at the end of the day, the client's benefiting from it.
Yeah.
They're getting all this awesome coaching because all the coaches want to be the guy that gets them the first muscle up or makes them squat properly, or
that's right.
and it's good.
Yeah.
It works. So it enhances our member experience. It gets more work done. It, you know, achieves results for our members, and all through just that little bit of competition. And if you're a male out there that says you don't have that competition, you're probably lying to yourself. You know, so embrace it and go for it. I mean, you might find it a bit confronting at first that you're in a competition, but face it, every day of your life you're in a competition. Like, you talk amongst your group of mates who seemingly don't care where you are in life or where you're going in life, but shit, it's a competition. Oh, I earn this much, I do this many hours, or I've got this car, or I've got this house. It's a competition.
Even if it's unspoken, as you say, we're always sizing other people up, and as shit as it may seem, and from a life coaching point of view, perhaps, we're taught not to compare ourselves to others. But I don't see any. Well, not anybody. That's a sweeping generalisation. I don't see many people who don't make even silent comparisons.
Yeah. Oh, everyone does it. It's human nature. Like I said, to deny the fact that you are in a competition, I think is damaging to your success. But the way you go about being in a competition determines what kind of man you are. Like, if you're cutthroat enough to damage other people and to put them down to give yourself the edge, then that just says a lot about your character.
Yep.
But yeah, I think if you can, embrace that little bit of competition, especially in a team, and realise that competition is good, and that even if you're winning, you can still help the guy behind you. And if he gets better, then you get better by virtue of the fact that the standard is raised. So, it's always that goes back to the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. So if you walk past a shitty standard by someone else, then that's what you come to expect. But at the end of the day, it lowers the bar for yourself. So
that's right.
Help everyone around you, and they'll raise the bar, and in turn, you get better at everything that you're doing as well. So, that's my approach to that.
Cool, mate. So I know you've probably got some classes to do, mate. And we're not doing too bad. We've only just cracked the hour mark.
Yeah,
we could go for a while yet. We haven't even started talking about practical rifle competition. All sorts of stuff, mate.
That's right.
But there's been some fantastic points in there around, I guess, not whether you've served in the military or not, just making transitions in life. I mean, whether it's transitioning from being at school and into your first job, or from being an employee to a business owner, or from a technician to getting a management role. Life is all about making those transitions.
That's right.
Well, and I wanted to ask you around that, Jason, of what's been some of the tools or principles that you've picked up over your lifetime that have helped you with some of those transitions, or that perhaps even looking back, it's like, man, if I had this tool in my kit bag 10 years ago, that would have been so much smoother.
That's right. As we were speaking about before we started today, in high school I was the quiet guy. And now, people who would see me now in my job, or just in life in general, because I'm a completely different person, due to the fact that the military, built me the way that I am today, and my experiences in the military shaped me, they wouldn't recognise who I am. And I think a really important part of stitching all those experiences and lessons together is the ability to be self-critical, or to be able to retrospectively analyse where you're going and where you've come from. I think it's just as important to realise where you've come from as it is to realise where you're going forward. It helps you to find weaknesses within yourself. The way you've handled situations in the past can teach you a lot about who you are. So like I said, the way you react to competition, the actions you take define or categorise you as a human. So if you have the ability to do that for yourself and look at yourself and go, well, shit, I didn't really perform in that situation. I mean, I got away with it because no one's trying to stone me, but by my own standards, I screwed that up.
Yep.
to be able to look at that and go, all right, this next time I'm going to do this, or I need to get better at this, and that can shape your future a lot.
Mm.
And I was actually having a discussion with one of my brothers the other day. I don't think he was listening to me, but I was talking to him or at him, and I was saying how some people, they have life happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear it all the time. Oh, this happened and this happened. But then you hear some people talk, and you're amongst those people for me, is yes, things are happening to them, but they've got a really good appreciation of why that happened and what part they played in that. And without those skills to be self-critical and to look at those issues and the way you've handled them, you're probably going to continue failing at those things in the future. And so we used to call it an AAR in the military, after action review. And so having the ability to sit down after any situation or occurrence in your life and do your own personal AAR is really important. And one of the conclusions that comes out of an AAR is where you need to fix, what systems you need to fix, what tactics, protocols and procedures need updating, and then moving forward from there. So in a nutshell, being able to perform an AAR at any time and be really honest with yourself is really important. So yeah, there's not much people could tell me about myself and my failings that I wouldn't have already known or realised. There's some areas that I'm a little bit touchy about, like my hair loss and things like that, but
I wasn't going to bring that up, mate.
but no, like,
and there's a big fuck off mirror behind you on the wall,
so you can
and
see
I
the
can
back patch as well. That's right. So yeah, it's that ability. I think it's one of the best habits that I've formed that is helping me out now. So the other thing is, if you do find a shortfall in yourself, be man enough to put your hand up and address it, or talk to someone about it and fix it, and don't get stifled by pride and just continue making the same mistakes over and over again, digging yourself into a deeper hole. So, yeah.
So, mate, I'm going to grab hold of something there and put you on the spot a bit.
Yeah.
If you were to do an AAR in your life so far, what would be some of the key points on your scorecard, mate?
All right. So, some of my common failings is I'm a dreamer. So I have huge ideas, and I don't often analyse those ideas enough before I walk into something. But on saying that, it brings out another strength of mine is there's no cuff too tough. Like, you're in it, just go with it. Just you might have screwed up by getting yourself to that point or in that situation, but just make it the best that you can. So I'd probably be a little bit more realistic with my analysis of whether I'm jumping into a situation or not. But yeah.
So you'd still jump.
Yeah,
you just might
still jump. But
look
just
a
be
little harder.
Just be flexible and willing to adapt to whatever the terrain is that you hit at the bottom.
Yep.
And because if you can't adapt to it, then you really will make a mistake and you're going to fail.
Yep.
So, what else? Yeah, that's the main ones. I guess I'd have to have a really in-depth look. But
you're going to go and do that now, aren't you, mate?
Oh, I will. I'm a huge fan of self-help. Some people don't adapt to self-help real well because it's confronting.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm and we'll wrap up, mate, but I'm always fascinated at the people who are anti, they like to give it funny names and derogatory names like woo-woo and hippie-trippy, fluffy shit and, all the headspace crap. And anytime you hear people putting down other ideas, to me is a red flag.
Yeah, that's right.
And it has often frustrated me because the people who could benefit most from a bit of the hippie-trippy woo-woo that I've come across in life are the people who are put it down the most. Yeah,
people often criticise me for engaging in too many deep conversations. My wife's one of them, but I guess she bears the brunt of it because everywhere we go I end up in quite an engaging conversation with someone.
So shopping trips take a long time for you, mate?
Yeah, generally. Yep. Takes 40 minutes to say goodbye.
Yep.
Because the next topic arises, and there's some topics I can't walk away from. You've got to delve into that. But I think the people who shy away from deep conversations like that, I won't call them simple. I just think they lack something that allows them to really apply themselves and think about a situation. They just want to live life at face value. And I think that attributes to that whole having life happen to them. Because,
It loops back to something you said at the start of our chat, Jason, about the difference between, you talked about, I guess, losing a lot of mates, sort of leaving the military. That mateship wasn't there so much.
Yep.
And the conversations that you have with people outside of the service is, we're probably talking about the election and the weather and whether the price of milk went up or down.
Yeah.
Whereas most of that is stripped away when you exist inside that defence force.
Absolutely. Yep.
And you're talking about real shit because, from a mission or an exercise perspective, there is no fluff.
Yeah.
There's no room for fluff.
Yeah.
So you get straight down to the tin tacks.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, once you see what people are really made of. Like, you go through some hard times and you see dudes break down and cry, and it's not their fault. It's just the situation. Or you see people in a state where they're ready to kill people and do bad things that normal people don't ever have to. Situations normal people don't ever have to face.
They're not moral dilemmas the rest of us have to.
That's right.
Deal with.
This is stuff that we've been trained for, and I think when you see those emotional sides to people, they know that you've seen them. So there's nothing else to hide. You've all been stripped back to nothing. So there is no false platitudes anymore. We all know what each other's made of. And you can skip a lot of that bullshit that people go through day to day. Like, who cares about the weather or milk? Yep. Tell me about this. Yeah. Why did your relationship with your girlfriend fail, mate? Yeah. Was it because you're doing this or that? And you can strip right to the core on a lot of that stuff with those mates. Whereas, you generally in life, people do go through and they play out the the conversation, the false platitudes, the niceties and stuff like that, and it's a good skill to have to be able to talk to people. But at the end of the day, you do miss a little bit of that engaging conversation with people. It's something you miss, definitely. So you don't feel as connected to people as you did when you were in the military with your mates and stuff like that. So
sounds like the beginnings of a book for you, Jason.
Oh, mate, I think it's already been written a couple hundred times. But a good example is we come back from Iraq. You spend up to 7 months in each other's pockets, and you're like, man, I cannot wait to get away from these dudes. I'm so sick of Luke and he was my roommate. I'm so sick of his little idiosyncrasies. I'm sick of it. And this guy's pissing me off. And you get in each other's hair, and by the end of a 7-month trip, you've had enough of each other. But then you go home and everyone's at work and you're on leave and you're sitting there, and it's only been 2 days since you got back in country, and you're sitting there and looking at your phone going, should I call Jezza? I wonder what Jez's up to. I wonder what Luke's up to. And then you end up at the movies with them because, I don't know, you bonded to each other. And
it's your tribe, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And to pretend that that's nothing is a mistake. And to not acknowledge it is a mistake as well. So, that's the level of attachment you're growing within the Defence Force that it is really hard to create outside of that construct. So
I definitely think that's missing a lot in today's society, mate.
That's right.
We've got lots of fluff.
Yeah.
And you've only got to jump onto the good old stalk book to see plenty of fluff and bubble on there.
Yeah.
And not a lot of real conversation going on.
I guess it might not be related. I maybe just want to segue to it. But like, if you and I wanted to go hunting, which is extremely frowned upon these days and hard to actually do, because those freedoms that we once enjoyed back in the day have been stripped away from us. But like, hunting is an activity where you and I are probably going to experience something together and figure out what each one's made out of. So if I shoot a goat that's 250 metres up a pretty steep cliff or steep ravine, and we've both got a hike up there, we're gonna have to slug it out, and then to carry that thing out, we sort of, I think we don't engage in as many activities these days as humans that really show people who we are. Like,
they don't test us.
No, that's right. Life isn't testing anymore. So, everything's it's all comfortable. And when you're comfortable, you're not really exposing who you are.
We have a very easy life.
Well, absolutely.
We're sitting here in a carpeted office in my nice
cushion
house
chairs
in the suburbs. Comfy chairs, which are destroying my posture and
that's
my
right.
circulation.
That's right.
But it's like, we lead such an easy life now, and I don't think many of us really find out who we truly are.
Yeah.
And if and when we do, it's it's things like in my life where my personal safety's never been threatened, or maybe a couple of times by myself, but but the experiences I've been through, some seemingly catastrophic,
that's right,
financially and emotionally, it's taken that for me to sort of go to the depths of myself and go, right, that's who I am.
Yeah.
I thought I was this other guy.
Yeah, that's it.
And unfortunately, for many of us, that never even happens.
No, it doesn't.
So we just move through life as these sort of bubble-wrapped individuals watching Netflix and banking our super.
That's it.
And I don't know, mate. I feel like, everything's just gotten so friggin' watered down.
Yeah, there's no body to it anymore. That's just my thoughts on it. But, you see it even in the gym. People come to a class together for a couple of months and they're friends, they chat, exchange platitudes. How was your day? Oh, it was good. How was your day? Etc. And then they commit and they go and do Tough Mudder together. And they come back and they're a completely different dynamic between each other because they've gone through some kind of shared hardship. And they probably did witness one of them cry or be ready to quit. And they were challenged, and next thing you know, the people that they did that with have jumped up to the next level of friendship and connection. So I think that's the stuff that we lack these days. So the challenges are...
I want to drag some people. I think we were chatting a while ago, mate, about dragging people out just to test
that's right.
them.
Absolutely.
Male or female. I mean, this is not exclusively the domain of men, but
that's right.
I believe that's one of the reasons why my partner and I are so close. I think in terms of our understanding and support of each other is we do both CrossFit and we have both competed individually and together, funnily enough. But we've trained together quite a lot. And I think we've seen each other struggle with stuff. And I think that gives a personal insight into another human, as you're saying.
That's right.
That I think allows that understanding. And it's like you can sit down and talk real stuff and not be worried about tiptoeing around shit.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So, maybe it's true. Couples that train together, mate.
That's right.
Don't know.
We'll see how it goes.
You could start a whole new business.
Yeah, that's right.
CrossFit for couples.
Yeah. We build relationships and muscles.
Yeah.
Something like
that. But we got to stop you from dreaming, mate.
That's right.
You've already mentioned that.
Financially not viable, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go and plan a hunting trip, mate. Now that you mentioned that, it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, we've had some planned. I mean, we went to New Zealand mid-year for a shooting comp. And while we're over there, that sort of wanderlust, you're looking into the mountains, you're not up in them quite. Be sort of like, I could just walk away with this rifle and go up there and hunt and live and for a week. And you sort of crave it, financially and with your life and its schedule that you have to keep. Sometimes it's not possible, but I definitely think it should be done more often. And like you said, with your solo hikes, the amount of people that wanted to go with you on your solo hike. It kind of
phenomenal. Like destroys the solo hike concept.
Yeah, it does. It does. But the concept of escaping. I'm pretty fortunate. I've got some good hobbies that take me away, and I can get away and escape. But a lot of people lack that opportunity. So we're sort of trapped by our own comforts these days. It takes an effort to get away,
and our own choices, mate.
Yeah, that's right.
We take that principle you mentioned earlier. It's like we set our lives up the way they are. And when we sort of stare in the mirror at 2:00 in the morning in the silence of night.
That's right.
Metaphorically speaking, honestly, we've got what we've got because we chose it.
That's right.
And we can have something different if we just choose it.
Yeah. All the time you hear people talk about life changes or career changes, and they come up with excuses before you've even had to contribute to their conversation. They've already given you the excuse of why they're not actually going to do it. So that conversation ends quickly with me because it's like, well, if you're not going to do it, then we'll talk about something else.
Let's talk about the weather or the price of milk.
That's right, because all you're doing is you're stifling yourself. You've constricted yourself before you've even given yourself an opportunity to try. So they get themselves trapped in what they've created for themselves, and they're unhappy about it, but they continue to do it. And it's through that attachment to comforts like a good wage or location. So,
mate, I couldn't finish this chat without talking a bit more about CrossFit. Is it a cult?
In a way, but the definition of a cult, implies that there's something sinister happening. But in CrossFit, only good things are happening. So it has some of the same characteristics as a cult, but it's definitely not, because we only see good results. There's no mass suicides in CrossFit. We only see fitter and stronger people walking in and out of our gyms day to day. I guess where the cult comment comes from is the people that are outside of CrossFit, and they just see all these people banding together and being overly enthusiastic about something, and they don't understand it. And then one day, if they ever, nut up and get the balls to walk in, they're going to understand it, and they're probably going to love it as much as the person that they were criticising a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
But I think it's because we're so supportive of each other. Like, our gym has a great culture, and as much as people say that I've built that, and it's, you've done a great job, Jace, I actually haven't done anything active to foster that culture. I guide it, but ultimately it determines its own shape. And one of the great things is that the people that don't fit into that culture of supporting each other or supporting anyone, even if it's someone they don't know, to go up to someone you don't know and give them a high five at the end of a workout is something that's unseen in a lot of other gyms. And people who don't like that or don't vibe with that, they don't stick around. And we're not sad about that at all.
Yep.
If you're not a person that can be supportive of someone you don't know, even if they did half the work that you just did, then you probably don't belong in our gym. So in that sense, that level of engagement with people and that level of support for people that you're not actually invested in their success, but you show that you care anyway, is something that's unique to a CrossFit gym. So in that way, that level of enthusiasm, I think, cultivates that cult comment.
Yep.
But it's definitely not, because there's nothing bad happening there. We don't have gates. We don't wear cloaks. There's no hoods.
It's funny though, mate, because and I've only been CrossFitting for a bit over 3 years personally, and coaching for about 12 months. But they talk about cult films.
Yeah.
And cult bands.
Yep.
And that's seen as kind of a cool thing. They have this cult following.
That's right.
And it's interesting that the way that term is used about CrossFit is in the negative rather than the positive.
Right.
And I think it scares people.
Absolutely. Like CrossFit is such an engaging experience, or an engaging way to approach fitness, that you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. And you and I both know that everyone out there on the street should be doing CrossFit, because it really is the most effective way to train. But not everyone will do CrossFit. It's just not for everyone. They should do it, but they won't. It's just not how it is. So when it comes back to the whole cult film or cult band type thing, Napoleon Dynamite, that was an awesome movie. I loved it. But there's a whole lot of people out there that hate it. So
for good reason too, I suspect.
That cult thing, you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. And that's where I think it fits in with the cult.
It's very polarising, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people allow CrossFit to polarise them before they even give it a chance, because they just can't handle that kind of enthusiasm about anything. And when they see that kind of enthusiasm about something, they're suspicious of it, and they write it off before they give it a shot. So, yeah. So all I can say in summary is if you're out there and you want to get into your fitness and you're lost and you've tried seemingly every other possibility, but you haven't yet walked into a CrossFit gym, you're doing yourself a disservice. Because as soon as you walk in, you're going to be embraced, and they're going to teach you some things that will stick with you for life. And they're going to show you a hard time, but it's going to benefit you drastically. It's going to change the way you look at life. It's going to change the way you react to other adverse situations. You're going to have the fitness to deal with stuff, and you're going to have a great group of people behind you supporting you, not just in the gym, but in life in general. So, do yourself a service and walk into a CrossFit gym and give it 6 weeks. I mean, it's going to be hard, but you'll love it.
Best things in life are hard, mate.
Yeah, that's right. If it's not hard, it's not worth it.
That's right.
So,
well, mate, it's been an awesome chat.
Thanks,
I know we could sit here for another couple of hours, I suspect.
Yeah,
but I can see your phone flashing at you, and I don't even want to look at mine.
Yeah.
If you're in Toowoomba, listeners, and you're either a CrossFitter or you want to find out what CrossFit is all about, check Jason and his box out. That's the term for a CrossFit gym because we just had to be different. So I'll refrain from saying check out Jason's box. But
it's a cold thing. You won't get it.
Yeah. It's CrossFit Confront, crossfitconfront.com.au up here on the range in good old Toowoomba. Best CrossFit. Actually, we'd have to say best gym in Toowoomba, mate.
Oh,
full stop.
Undeniably.
And actually, I want to give you a bit of a plug and a shout out, mate. The local rag here, the Toowoomba Chronicle, ran a readers vote. And like most of those things, whoever most actively shares it on Facebook gets the most votes.
Right.
But it was a pretty good accolade to see CrossFit Confront up there.
Yeah.
I think it was like 2 or 3 or something out of like 30 or 40 gyms in this city. So,
and we didn't plug it at all.
No. Most of our members were too busy working out.
Yeah, that's right. Or posting their own pictures and results on Facebook.
Here's me doing a box jump.
Yeah.
So it was a very good accolade, mate.
Yeah,
and I think I think only one of 2 CrossFit gyms that made it into that sort of top 20 or 30 gyms. So, mate, obviously what you're doing is working. I certainly love being a part of it, and as a member and as a part-time coach, mate. So, awesome chat.
Thanks, mate.
I'm dead set going on Google hunting trips. So,
yeah, well, it's great to have you on board, both the gym and here. But embrace yourself for 2018 because we've got a few changes coming up. So, which you'll enjoy.
Sounds good.
In both the gym and outside the gym. So
I like it, mate. More opportunities for personal growth.
Yeah, like I think I'm going to New Zealand next year. Maybe you can tag along.
Yeah, hopefully my fiancée doesn't listen to this episode. She'll wonder where the money went.
Yeah, and maybe she's cool with being replaced by a rifle as a companion, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how that works out, hey?
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks again, mate. Great to have you on the show.
No worries. Thanks, man.
So there you go, my chat with Jason from CrossFit Confront in sunny Toowoomba. If you'd like to find out more information about Jason's CrossFit facility, go to all the W's, CrossFit Confront, CONFRONT.com.au. Now, I said at the top of this episode that you could win some stuff. And running a little promo at the moment. You might have listened to the episode I did with the guy from Miracle Sandbags, Andre John. Now, these sandbags are cool. They're sandbags without sand. Weird, you would think. But anyway, they're basically like kids' nappies, I guess. You stick these empty bags down where there's water going to come in, and they soak up the water and then turn into a sandbag. It's like something out of Transformers. Anyway, Andre has kindly offered a couple of packs of these things to give away, worth $30 each, and you could win one simply by going to the Tradies Business Show Facebook page and commenting in there with how you could use your twin pack of Miracle Sandbags. How could you use a couple of these things? Could you stop a drain from flooding someone's house? Could you stop some water ripping through your new landscaping project? Let me know. Go comment, Tradies Business Show on Facebook. Tell me how you would use them, and I'll be drawing a winner towards the end of December 2017, which is about when this show is being aired. So, apart from that, hope you're having a great week. Hope you have a great week ahead. Hope you enjoy the episode. Whatever you thought, however you feel, hit me on Facebook, Tradies Business Show. Tell me what you think. Tell me who you'd like to hear on the show. If you've got any great guest ideas? How about ideas? Let me know. I think it's time for me to go now. All right, till next time. Hooroo.
You've been listening to the Tradies Business Show with Warwick Bidwell. Want to get off the tools and into true business ownership? Find out how at tradiesbusinessshow.com.